Well, hi there, folks. It's Matt Hayson here looking at this week's property market. Well, the RBA blindsided most banks and economists during the week and lifted the cash rate by 50 basis points. That's the highest cash rate increase in 22 years. Now, the cash rate is currently sitting at 0.85%, but it is tipped that the RBA will pull the trigger and lift the cash rate another 50 basis points next week. That'll leave the cash rate sitting at 1.35%. Now, most banks, economists are predicting that the cash rate is going to land somewhere between 2 and 2.5% by the close of this year. Now, I have to turn the spotlight onto the RBA and ask, what is going on? Governor Philip Lowe is the highest paid public position in the country and he's steering a major part of the economy. As late as December last year, he was still suggesting that it is plausible that the cash rate will not be increased until 2024. Now, that gaffe came with an apology in May this year, suggesting it was an embarrassing error and that the RBA should have done better. But they didn't stop there. They also said in February that inflation here in Australia was being played down, that was far more muted than other countries. Well, as we know, inflation is now looking at north of 6%, and Ian Macfarlane, the former boss of the RBA, suggesting that inflation could peak at 8%. So they got that horribly wrong as well. But let's look at this cash rate, because if it does rise from 0.1% in April to 2%, for example, by the end of this year, that is a 20x increase. Now, a lot of people have gone out and bought a home over the last year and a half in some of the highest rising property markets we've ever seen in a generation on the narrative that the cash rate would not be lifted until 2024. It's akin to me bringing a home onto the market and guiding $1 million, but I sell it for $20 million. I think I'd be out of a job if I got something so horribly wrong. Also, let's turn our attention to CBA, the nation's largest lender, who are also complicit in very poor forecasting. I like this article back in February, which noted that Chief Economist Gareth Aird, the very accurate forecaster Gareth Aird, suggested that the rising cycle for interest rates would land at 1.25%. And within this article, he cited that Australian households are indebted with debt now and very sensitive to any interest rate increase. Now, I have to ask the question, now that they are forecasting a cash rate sitting at 2.1%, that's a 70% increase on only a matter of months ago, their previous forecast. What will happen to the Australian consumer if they were concerned about the sensitivity at 1.25%, but now they're forecasting a cash rate at 2.1%? But it's not all doom and gloom out in the market, that is for sure. A-grade property is continuing to deliver very punchy outcomes. Last week we sold under the hammer 101 Louisa Road in Birchgrove, well north of $9.7 million. That's the highest under the hammer sale on the Balmain Peninsula so far in 2022. Magnificent waterfront, fantastic city views, but also we sold 23 Lawson Street in Balmain for this newly built home in 2019. This property sold well before auction. In fact, only just 1 week on the market for $4.445 million. 13 contracts issued, a lot of interest on that particular property, but also a very interesting sale at 51 Bateman's Road in Gladesville. Now, this property only traded a year ago, but we managed to secure for the sellers a 7% increase on their previous purchase, which is very interesting in a perceived downturn market. So folks, that's what's going on. The market's not all doom and gloom. We've got some great properties open for inspection this weekend. It's a long weekend. We look forward to seeing you out and about. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you all next week.